Bills fans, what is up? I know it's late. It's 12:30 a.m. East Coast, but I'm wide awake. I'm sure a lot of you are. First round of the 2023 draft is a wrap, and we are one player up from 4 hours ago. Uh, I've strongly felt for a long time it was going to be a tight end. Didn't know which tight end it was going to be. Thought there would probably be a couple gone by the time the Bills picked. Didn't know, how they truly felt about any of the guys. But once they traded up to get ahead of Dallas, I was like, okay, this is Bean doing what Bean does. He likes a guy. He feels like somebody is itching, and he wants to go get him. And he swapped the 4, went up and got Dalton Kincade. And again, we did a little bit of a mock on Monday just to have fun. And I think the room was finally conceded that Darnell Washington would have been the guy at 27, but there was no way that I didn't think Kincade would have been there. I just, you had Daniel Jeremiah, had him 9th overall. I think you had I know some other people had him ranked rather highly. I don't know what Dane Brugler had him ranked or Mel Kiper. I'll look just to. I should have probably looked before that, but he was ranked rather high. He was not a guy that was looked upon as a true first round talent. And you kind of got the sense when Bean was talking in the press conference that this was a first round player that they wanted to go get. Want to probably maybe potentially the last one on the board, but to just give it a gander on Dane Brugler's top 100, he had him as his 20th overall player. He had Michael Mayer one spot ahead of him. And if I look on, I probably think that Mel Kiper's a little bit more old school. He probably had Mayer ahead of him as well, but that was a pretty fun little move there. Didn't see that coming. Saw the wide receivers just going. Oh, he was ranked 14th overall by ESPN. So interesting. He was ranked rather high. I wasn't surprised that they took a tight end because it's something that they had been trying to do for a while. I mean, I don't know so much in 2019. I know they did try to sign Greg Olsen in 2000. Chose to go to Seattle. I know they brought in Tyler Kroft. They had Lee Smith. I believe they did try to make a tight end signing that offseason, but I can't recall the guy. But they had just drafted Dawson Knox. I think they tried to bring back Logan Thomas, but he ended up going to Washington, had a bit of a breakout year. Josh's first pass was to tight end Logan Thomas. I mentioned that on Monday. 2001, Knox breaks out a little bit. They had Sweeney, came back from the illness. It was never the same. We saw a little bit of flash in that Jets game at the end of 2019. Didn't play in 2020. Forward to 2022, I mean, Knox was had to stay in and block a little bit more than I think they would have liked to help out Spencer Brown, who was still recovering from his back. They kind of let him loose later on in the year. They were playing, if you remember, playing Quentin Morris a lot. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, why are they playing Quentin Morris so much? Yeah, Hollister was last season, 2021, year before last. Last year was O.J. Howard, brought in O.J. Howard, Zach. So this is something they've tried. This is not new. It was under a different offensive coordinator. They've tried this. They feel very comfortable with who Dawson Knox is and what he's become in their offense. And as a player, the drops have ceased. The blocking. I mean, when's the last time do we remember Dawson Knox getting a holding penalty or dropping a big pass? I mean, you just don't remember it. So he's become very much a trusted target of Allen, especially in the red zone. I posted the stat. Allen has 30 touchdown passes in the last 3 years to tight ends, including the playoffs. And Kincade, 35 career touchdowns. You see a fluid, loose athlete, not, kind of on par with his size, 6'4", 247, fluid hips. uh, 10.5-inch hands, big hands, 10 and a quarter, 10 and a half. So big hands. He had the best catch rate of any of the tight ends, um, lowest drop rate, most broken tackles, and most rack of any of the tight ends that were in this draft. So you get the run after catch, you get the miss in space, you get a red zone, you get a matchup guy. Bean said it. And it's 11 and a half personnel. So they view him since as a big wide receiver. I mean, and you look at him, 247, even that weight, they're going to say, we don't want you blocking linebackers. We don't want you taking on defensive ends. If you're going to be blocking somebody in space, it's going to be corners and safeties. So that's perfect. So we're going to see. And it's everything I alluded to. When they want to get in the red zone and start mixing and matching, every team in this league plays between the 30s. And the way teams go for it on fourth down now, you could even say between the 20s. And then it's just how you finish. And that was the thing that was missing with this team. Even though the offense was top 2-3 in the league, it was that red zone finish and just having a play or two in a game that could just flip it, just spark the offense. And you like it because you see the two teams in the division that had first round picks. You see the Patriots, you see the Jets, who just got Aaron Rodgers. You see the two teams that everybody feels like that's in the Bills' way, the Bengals, the Chiefs, all of them go defense. And the Bills choose to go offense. Last year, they went defense. They went offense in the second round with Cook. So this a big, I think about what McDermott said at the press conference, matchup problems who are playmakers. And I think that's what this guy is. Remember him mentioning Chad Lewis from his time in the Eagles. And, they had LJ Smith then. And then Bean tonight mentioned Greg Olsen, and I believe the other tight end. I don't know if it was Ed Dixon or Jeremy Shockey when Cam was a rookie, and they loved having that personnel grouping. So yeah, it's something they've looked to do. It's something that they finally have the personnel to use, and we're going to see how it all plays out. I didn't envision the player being available. I think I had him in certain instances. I had him I had him either going to the Green Bay Packers at 13, had him going to the Lions at 18. It was a crazy first round. I mean, two running backs, one at 8 and one at where did they end up taking him at 14 or 15? I forget where Detroit took Jahmyr Gibbs, and then they take Jack Campbell. And I swear, Bills fans have a fetish for this old school looking middle linebacker a la Shane Conlon. They just can't get enough of it. I remember when the Bills drafted Paul Posluszny and everybody lost their mind, and the guy was just a stiff. I'm not saying Campbell will be that. Could be a very, very good player. And, Gibbs is lightning in a bottle. And Detroit was hell on wheels. And they don't want to knock them. But I'm really, really excited about what this player can bring to the Bills offense. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm going to read some of the comments here. I know it's late. Yeah, I mean, people are gonna say what they're gonna say. I mean, it's night one of the draft. There's 2 more days. The Bills now have what? They have 4 more picks. I think they traded away. I think they traded away 2 picks to get up there. So no, they have. Yeah, they have. I think 4 more picks. Because last year the thing happened with. Even the year before that, they ended up losing Wild Goose. He got claimed. I believe last year, the whole Ariza thing. So there's a 5th round pick, 6th round pick, now 6th round pick down the toilet. And then they lost Tenuta to a claim on the 53 cut to the Colts. So there's not as many roster spots available for this team as people think. Okay, they only traded away 130, and they can recoup that tomorrow. They can trade down. They can trade down in the 3rd round, so they can get that back tomorrow at midnight. Thanks for those of you who are in I always told you I'd open the room for one or 1,000 or 1,000,000, does not matter. Just having fun. Um, I was watching a little bit. I'm sure a lot of you guys, when the Bills draft a player, you kind of go back and you watch a few of the players, highlights. And it was the USC game, of course, that popped up right away. I remember the Florida game early this year, and that was one Utah lost. They were favored to win. I'm a Gator fan, so of course rooting for the Gators. I have a feeling if they would have played that game in the second half of the year, they probably would have won it the way they were playing better. And yeah, Kincade is hell on wheels, and he was definitely a security blanket, a guy that Cam Rising looked to a lot. Like he was just, he was just like, boom, there he is. I'm throwing it to him. And the UFC game to me is kind of a catch-22 because USC was so bad on defense. It's like a player like that is just going to shine. But, to catch 16 passes and go for 230 as a tight end is special at any level. Yeah, so it's just a thing. It's a name. It's a player who's established. It's a guy, so it's I can understand why fans are going to get excited about it. So, I get it. I wasn't a fan because of the money and what is going to come with that player in terms of, how it inhibits you in other areas. Because what happens. We talked about it Monday. Guys are taken today. They'll be released Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then you have veterans available that aren't going to count against the compensatory pick formula. And, you got to have flexibility to go get those guys. So, and if you get a Hopkins, I'm not saying he won't help you because he can help us. He can help the Bills 100%. So we'll see. We'll see what they do, but it's an interesting. I even tweeted 2 tight ends with the same initials, DK. It just what are the odds? The first tight end by the Bills taken, the last time 1983, Tony Hunter from Notre Dame, right ahead of Jim Kelly, which is wild. If you think about it, you have a tight end taken ahead of a quarterback who ended up in a Hall of Fame, going to 4 straight Super Bowls, unheard of. And you're like, who the hell is Tony Hunter? Yep. So he's the first tight end the Bills have taken. And I kind of look at him as a wild card, a joker type of player. Not quite in the vein of an Aaron Hernandez because he's bigger, but similar in the things that he's going to be able to do, moving around the formation, creating matchup problems, headaches for the defense. And that's just the way I felt they wanted to do it. And just this draft class afforded it. And once the wide receivers, I don't think they had first round grades on all the receivers, especially Quentin Johnston. Also, Addison was, to me, a little light in the ass. Like, nice player, but he's not going to get those free releases in the NFL. Very smooth, very fluid, but you're not getting, when you got corners, big corners that are going to be on your hip. You're going to have to use something. He's just not the size. At least Flowers, you see the explosion, you see the in and out, the cuts, 3 levels of the defense he can affect. And you see it in Baltimore too. They went out and got themselves another weapon for a quarterback they just gave a lot of money to. So, they're trying to maximize on their investment. So a lot of dominoes fell today in the AFC. They really, really did over this last week. With the Rodgers trade, Jackson re-signing, OBJ ended up in Baltimore. Yeah, there's some good wide receivers coming, and I think a lot of times wide receivers, in a lot of cases, are only as good as your quarterback. I mean, we've seen 1,000,001 times there's wide receivers that get taken. They just don't elevate average quarterback play, like Sammy Watkins and EJ Manuel, or just the list goes on. Just in our case, Robert Woods. We saw what Robert Woods could do, with a competent quarterback play, but in Buffalo, he just never got it. He just never got it. I think he's kind of a Johnny, like a player like that, just athlete explosion. Also, what do you use him as? He's an edge at what 235. Is he a linebacker? He's a tweener. He's a real tweener. And in college, you can get away with being a tweener, being an athlete, being a N'Kobe Dean. But in the NFL, it's very very difficult. I remember the Bills drafted an edge player like that from Virginia Tech. His name was Corey Moore. He was a defensive end, but he was really like five. It was insane. He was like 5'10" and 220 pounds. But the guy could rush the passer naturally, like really, really good. I mean, but he could only do it in certain situations. And when he got blocked, that was it for him. That was it. But I remember he wore number 54. He was hell on wheels in college. In college at Virginia Tech, wow. Like he really stood out. But in the league, as Doug remembers, it just, Aaron Maben, was bigger naturally, but there was so many other things with Aaron Maben going on. Like he basically told the Bills that he didn't really like football. He just did it because he was good at it. He wasn't in love with it. His first love was like painting and shit. And he had a situation with a girl who just, had lost a child, and, he's a young person. So his head, I can imagine, at that age, I don't want to be disparaging towards him or anything like that. But it one of those tweener guys, one of those guys that are in between. Well, Spencer Brown got beat, but he's also played a lot of football with the Bills. I feel like he played a little bit better in spurts, but again, I don't think they're going to give up on him. I think he's a guy that they drafted in the third round only a couple of years ago. He's still young and they like him. They've talked glowingly about him. And again, they have what? 4 more picks, 5 more picks. So we'll see what they end up doing with those picks. They have 2 tomorrow. There's a lot of interesting guys still left. It was a little bit of a shock, like some of the guys that went, some of the guys that didn't. I'm sure everybody's like, holy shit, Will Levis is there, and nobody took him. Michael Mayer's still there, Joey Porter Jr., Brian Branch, Hendon Hooker. There's definitely some guys left. Joe Tippmann is a guy the Bills had in. Osiris Torrance. Laporta got a lot of play. Julius Brents. He's a guy the Bills met with, I believe, at the Senior Bowl. Keon White, who got invited to the combine. So there's a lot of dudes. Matthew Bergeron, who got a lot of play early in the day. Drew Sanders, Trenton Simpson. So there's linebackers. There's offensive linemen left. So there's going to be some interesting guys left for the Bills to look at tomorrow. Well, I definitely like the fact that Harris was such a Bills killer, and now he's on the Bills. For some reason, that guy just had his best games against the Bills, and he was never a fumbler. The guy just wasn't a fumbler. Oh yeah, I think they can. It just depends on who moves around where, who feels like they need what. I mean, Jack Campbell going at 18 was insane. Like, who could have saw that coming? Like, it's the draft. It's these teams, 32, 31 independent entities doing their own thing, independent of each other, independent of all the pundits and fans. Like, you see a guy like Will McDonald, and if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, or I was plugging him a lot because I had heard like, holy shit, this guy's going to go in the first round. He's a target. I'm here in New Jersey, so I hear a lot of local stuff. I didn't hear it from anybody on radio or anything like that, but I had heard a lot of good things about him. And I was a little shocked that the Jets took him because they had invested, Jermaine Johnson last year. I know they have Carl Lawson, but they want to do a lot of they they feel like they got their guy. Hats off, good for them. I'm not going to talk disparagingly, until they all get on the field and go. Then I'll be ready to roll. Just I'll be fanboying it up. I read some of your comments, guys. Yeah, I mean, again, it's not. They can recoup a fourth round pick. I'm not too worried about that. You can trade down like they did last year, and a lot of those teams they kind of grade those guys in clusters. So we'll see what they do. I heard that guy's name a lot midnight. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes early tomorrow, but you never know. You never know. For me, Doug, I think it's going to be a defensive player, either defensive tackle or they're just going to go best player available. Whoever it is, it's a wide receiver, linebacker, defensive lineman. That's what they're going to do. They're just going to be like, hey, we want this. We're going to take this. We don't care what anybody says, what you think. It was a back. It was a back, Greg. Yeah, I know they drafted Terrell Bernard last year in the third round. He started one game, and they brought back and they brought in AJ Klein last year, brought him back again this year. So they kind of, I feel comfortable with AJ Klein. I'm not saying he's, a long-term guy. We both know that, but I feel comfortable with him just being steady, just being a steady guy, because that's what he is. He's just steady. So I'm good. I'm good with him. No, I'm not saying they shouldn't try to upgrade, but they still have to see what they have in Bernard too. They just can't say, hey, we drafted this guy in the third round. He's just going to run up and down on punt and kick coverage all the time for us. They got to try to figure out what they have there. And the only way they do that is he plays. Do you think, who knows? I just don't like small quarterbacks, man. Johnny, I'm just not a fan. I would have drafted Anthony Richardson with the first overall pick. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it for a big quarterback with the highest upside possible. The quick process, I get all that, football lingo, quick processor, quick this, quick that. Yeah, but when the guy gets blindsided by a 270-pound defensive end, and it's going to happen, a 300-pound defensive tackle is going to get a free run on him. And, a guard's going to whiff on a block. He's not going to see it. And that kid doesn't weigh 200 pounds. He didn't weigh 200 pounds tonight in that suit. Like, he might have blown himself up with 2 gallons of water at the combine to weigh in, but there's a reason he didn't weigh in at his pro day, because he walks around probably at $180, $185. And when you get into the season, again, I just wouldn't bet on a small quarterback. There's a reason they like these guys a certain size. But tomorrow, as it relates to the Bills, slight frame. He's like me. I'm not a broad dude. Like, he's built like me. I don't want me playing quarterback for nobody. A lot of the taller elite types of receivers had in the draft guard. Yeah. No, I didn't think it when they traded up. I didn't think it was going to be defensive player. I felt like it was for a tight end because they jumped in front of Dallas. Dallas wanted a tight end, and I kind of thought maybe Mayer at that point, but then they just got Kincade, who Daniel Jeremiah just loved. I mean, Jeremiah just was all over that guy. But we're gonna see, because he's basically like a tight end, but a big wide receiver. He's a smooth guy, catches the ball, big hands, transition to run, very, very smooth and fluid. He looks like a natural to position. I don't think there's going to be much of it's not going to be hard for him to just transition to the pass game in the NFL. It's not going to be hard for him to detach and go out and do all that stuff. And Allen's going to give him chances over the middle. He affects every part of the defense, whether it's the seam, the short middle, the deep middle, the boundary. He's gonna be a problem for people, and I'm looking forward to it. You make those big New England linebackers, those bigger, similar defensive scheme. down in Miami now. Those bigger linebackers, you make them go run and chase guys. That's not their strength. Even with the Jets, their safeties are smaller. Their linebacker, I know C.J. Mosley is not the athlete he once was. So, I mean, I like my chances with Quincy Williams against Kincade or Knox. So, let's go. I think you'll see some situations where you'll see a corner and a bigger corner end up getting matched on Kincade. You'll be like, oh, we got to put a big corner on this guy. We can't let him just run free. Remember, teams did that with Jimmy Graham. They did it with Gronk. Sometimes just to, what else can we do? Let me read some of your comments, guys. Well, yeah, 30 touchdowns. Like you like the tweet, Doug. The including, you had a few, touchdowns from Gilliam, who moonlights as a tight end / fullback, H-back. You had one thick six from Tommy Doyle, but playoffs, regular season, 30 touchdowns. And that's from the likes of Knox, Lee Smith, Tyler Croft, Tommy Sweeney, Quentin Morris. And then you throw this kid in who has 35 career college touchdowns. And only 3 of the touchdowns that I mentioned that Allen has thrown to tight ends have come outside the red zone. And this kid's he's going to get his share. I really think he's going to get his share. And it's just the way he affects other people too. The way, it opens up things for Knox. It opens up things for Diggs. It opens up things for Davis. Then you have, I think, just an untapped weapon in James Cook that I think can really, really, really go off this year, because he was starting to feel it at the end of last year. You saw it. Yeah, again, I mentioned it. If you think about this kid, and if you just add 5 touchdowns, and you throw him in maybe one to a certain game, or maybe how he would have affected other defenses in certain situations that would have opened up things for certain players. 5 touchdowns. If he adds 5 touchdowns to last year's team, that's 35 points. That's significant. That's huge. That's league leading in terms of points per game. You telling me that guy couldn't have got 5 touchdowns last year, 17 games? You definitely could have. And then Knox, again, teams are going to have to pick their poison. Where do we go? They play inside. They play outside. It's going to be, because they had Greg Cosell on, and what 2 tight ends does, it forces defense to basically say, this is what we're doing. We're going to do this. This is where we're going to line up, and you're going to know what it is. And basically we have to rely on our execution to stop you. Eagles are always up there. They're always, they're always in the mix. But it was interesting to see the Patriots. They went for a big corner. I thought they were gonna draft a quarterback. To be honest with you, I was like, oh shit, they are gonna take Levis, aren't they? And then the Jets to take the defensive end, which was a big plot twist, because everybody felt like they were gonna go for the tackle, but then they got jumped. So how are you guys feeling overall? Give me a 1 out of. Yeah, even if they're in base, if they're in nickel, you're still in a miss. You're still in a bind defensively, Doug. You know it. You got your linebacker. You want to cover him. You want to cover Knox. You want you want to bring on your nickel. He's got to cover him. Okay, that's fine. And then you can run at it. And then Allen can run at it. And then you have a guy like Harris running at it, which is a lot better than a Singletary running at it, especially if you want to run it from a more tighter set. And then running play action out of that is really, really is going to be really nice. read some of your comments, guys. Yeah, he's definitely a fluid tight end midnight. Like his hips is just the way he gets his head around. Like he kind of like has that little bit of like he played receiver in high school and just grew and was a basketball player. So he's got that Stevie Johnson, Cole Beasley, but in a big body. You're gonna see him juke somebody down inside the 5 and catch one of those little cheap touchdowns where he just shakes them at the line, falls forward. It's the word. It's the most frustrating touchdown you could have scored against your defense. It's like fuck. Well, I mean, what were you? But you can't stop it. You just can't stop it. Buffalo Bills 7 out of 10. I that's my favorite route, Doug, and I hate the fact more teams don't throw it because I look sometimes and safeties are playing so deep and there's so much room there, and I know it's like they don't throw it over there because it's like a tip. They don't want the ball to just become a cheap pick. Well, they're going to use them, Johnny. They're going to use them. Get that big gold heavyweight title put around his waist. The name is Dalton. I don't know. I would tomorrow. I would look for a guy like Tippmann if he's there, Bergeron if he's there, um, Drew Sanders. Again, I think they're just going to go with the best player. Look who they visited with, look who they've talked to, and just kind of peruse the roster, see where they might be a little light. Where there's age, where there's money, where there isn't money, and then kind of like, piece it together like that. Steve, fans are always going to be upset, dude. This is a perpetually despondent fan base. I was on, as a lot of us are on Twitter, for the duration of this thing, and all you hear is just the misery. It's like the WGR guys, the wide receivers. It was just like it's like a funeral with everything that happens. Everything is such a over dramatic reaction, and just like it's like women. It's like little girls. It's like go away. You sound so needy and bitchy and whiny. I hate that shit. Yeah, I mean, sometimes an edgy kid is good, Johnny. Sometimes he brings like, damn, he wants to change the trajectory of his family and not, have things continue on the course depending on where he comes from. And then there's kids that come from good families and they're lucky and they're blessed and they have great support systems. That helps. Not dropping passes is definitely a plus. I'm a fan of non-dropped passes. Let me read some of your comments, guys. He's going to play a lot of a lot of different roles for this team. I mean, they have the highlights of him now, and that was just like he runs a wheel, like the corner couldn't do anything. He had the nickel on him right there. He's just sitting down in the red zone, play action. He's wide open. He's already in the end zone. I remember a game that would have a guy like him. The game wouldn't have been as hairy with a guy like him. The Bills ended up winning it after a loss that a guy like him would have helped, if you remember it. The Dolphin game, the Baltimore game after that Dolphin game, where it just you're coming down to the wire, you can't get nothing going on offense. And after that first turnover touchdown, you settle the game down. You don't go down 17-0, whatever it was, 20-0, and you just maybe you could establish a bit of a run, put the defense in a bit of a bind matchup wise. Guy catches a pass for you that 25, flips a field. And then even if you do have to punt, it's not the end of the fucking world because they've got to drive 90 instead of, the Singletary fumble or think the ball, I think it might have caromed off Knox's hands of all things, and then was just a cheap interception. So I think in that game it wouldn't have been as bad. But loading up with weapons, matchup guys, I remember that the end of year presser, oh, it just rang in my ears up to this moment, up to the time they picked this kid. And it was McDermott who has a heavy say. As a defensive guy, I'm sure he tells the defense, this is what I don't like to deal with. As a defensive guy, I don't like dealing with this shit. This shit's a pain in the ass. I don't like this. It causes our defense problems. It causes any defense problems. Yeah, that's what I had said earlier, Johnny. I think he's a bigger Hernandez. I think he's a bigger Hernandez. I think he's a better athlete, and he doesn't have the let's just say issues. I'll just leave it at that. Well, yeah, Steve, he's going to be blocking. Like the Bills are, the Bills are going to have him on the edge, blocking safeties and corners. He's not going to be blocking, those big, stout outside rush linebackers like Jalen Phillips or anybody like that. Like he's going to be out there on the boundary blocking the smaller guys, which at his size he'll just be fine at. When you want to give Knox a blow, you can bring him on the field. When you want to get, so you can do a lot of different things. To me, the fact that they did it, they wanted to get ahead of Dallas. They played Dallas this year. And I said this when I started the video. Some of you guys weren't in here. I know I started it late. Remember Knox, when he came in, he developed his blocking. He became the blocker he is now. When's the last time he got a holding penalty? And how much was he blocking last year at the beginning of the year? When's the last time Knox got hit with a hold? I don't remember it. The drops, he cleaned those up. Rob Boris has been great at developing tight ends. You look at his history with Greg Olson. He carried that right down to Carolina with him, worked with him there. I know he did some stuff in St. Louis and LA. So he's got a good history with tight ends and developing them. So I think if somebody wants to develop their blocking, he's the kind of guy that can do it. Yeah, he was with the Rams quite a while. And they had a pretty different group of tight ends there. He wasn't there with this current crew though. He was there more with the Jeff Fisher Rams. What's up, Trevor? How you doing, man? Well, everybody got a weapon. Maybe he's a big wide receiver. Maybe he's a tight end. 11.5 personnel. It's a new personnel grouping. Call it the D&D grouping. Dawson and Dalton. Yeah, I just think they'll take the best player, Steve, no matter what it is. I just think they're going to take the best player. Defense, offense, they're just going to, outside of kicker and quarterback and long snapper, and punter. So everything else is on the table. I don't think they'll take a tight end tomorrow. How about that? I don't think running back's likely. I think let's just say offensive line, wide receiver, defensive line, linebacker. Maybe if a secondary guy's there that they like. I think that's where they end up utilizing the pick. I don't know if it takes luck, but I don't see other leaps and bounds. I mean, the last 2 regular seasons, the Bills have beat the Chiefs, and Mahomes got the ball. Allen didn't in the playoffs, and we all know how that all ended. So I don't see the issue. I mean, they won the Super Bowl again, so there it is. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing from Germany, bro? Here on the East Coast, United States, it is 1:12 a.m. You know, everybody else is kind of spread around. Yeah, Doug's on the East Coast here. He's right on the cusp of Central Time, I think. Th- Johnny, you know somebody's going to come available. Somebody's going to get released that we don't expect because of the draft. Something happened. They're going to potentially. They're probably going to draft a guy. So I'm not worried about it. They're going to do something there. They're not going to roll in with just this crew. Something else is going to happen before they line up in September. So I'm not sitting here like having convulsions. Yeah, I was going to go on Trevor, but I was like things were just kind of rolling along, and I'm like shit. I didn't want to tip a pick. I just kind of wanted everybody to just absorb it. I kind of thought about it and like, what's best if everybody just watches it on their own terms, absorbs it, gets a chance to listen to Bean, text who they want to text, tweet what they want to tweet, and have the interactions. And then when if you can, if you want to come on and we can talk about it. I mean, I'll be on again tomorrow for the second and third round, so it'll be a little bit more loose. Everybody's always geared up for the first round, and then the second and third rounds a little more calmer. Saturday, the same thing. I don't know, Trevor. They did their thing, and they're gonna do what they want to do. They were hell on wheels to play last year. I know that. So I'm not going to doubt what they're doing if they feel like it's the right thing. I thought for sure they would take a quarterback, but I was wrong. Um, that's a good thing tomorrow for the Bills. There's still a couple of quarterbacks on the board that'll drive players down to the Bills. Those tight ends are going to drive players down to the Bills. I mean, guys like Mayer, Washington, Laporta, Musgrave, Croft, maybe Schoonmaker potentially could drive players down to the Bills. Levis. So there's guys there that can, Hooker, Branch. So hopefully a player that they like can get down, or maybe there's a group of players that they like and they can just kind of do what they did last year, trade back or Koopa pick or two, and then play the long game that way. Because I think Bean doesn't mind trading those fourth rounders. He's just always said he just doesn't. He's out of the first round trading business. See, I don't think they're out of the DB market really. I don't think they're out of the offensive line market. So I think the tight ends definitely, because there's so many of them, and the quarterbacks. I mean, I would say tight ends and quarterbacks, and then everything else after that is a crapshoot. Why was I happy, Johnny? Because I was tired of seeing like Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs just getting mocked to the Bills like for the last 4 months. I'm like, why? I'm like, did they not see James Cook have 5.7 yards a carry? He only got he's going to take over as a starting running back. They just got Damian Harris, who's going to be like a 1A type of back or a B type of back. They traded for Naeem Hines, who's going to have a whole offseason to get fully immersed in the offense and play a role. I mean, like, why? I mean, like, it's just so, why I hate it? It's lazy. I watch so many, like, of these videos. I go all over the place because this is my hobby. Football is my hobby. And I'll just go on a random team's website and I'll watch them do a live mock. And just like, oh, I'm just going to give them the Jahmyr Gibbs. They need a running back. They need Josh Allen, protect him from himself. And I think about that. It just drives me nuts. And I've gone on this tangent so much. I'm like, why do they constantly bring this? Like, Allen has to protect him from himself. Yet the guy who got $260 million today has played one game in December, January in the last 3 years. And you know what game that was? That was the Bills playoff game. And he got knocked out of that game. We know who it is. I like the player, but I don't like first round running backs. I like the player. He's a good player. But once you get into the league, once you get into it, you see like the special backs. I mean, when you draft a first round running back, Marshawn Lynch had a Hall of Fame career. I mean, that year, if you look at even all the bullshit early in his career with the off the field stuff and the semi-retirement, and you kind of wish he would have been a little bit more dedicated to his body, taking care of himself a little bit more, especially with his running style, like the physicality, the violence, amazing. Like, I'll always hate that he got away and they let him get away and they chose to go with like a soft toy type of running back in Spiller. And oh, I saw that, Trevor. That's the money quote. That's the money quote, guys. I put that on my Instagram, actually. That's a good one. So Bills fans who want to like get excited, that's the quote that'll excite them the most. Yep. If the league allows Dalton Kincade to go play with Josh Allen, it's probably going to get what it deserves. So hopefully it gives us what we deserve. That's the better thing about it. But yeah, but you got the Lions. They paid David Montgomery a bit of money. They have DeAndre Swift. You got to believe he's going to be moved now for something. And they draft Jahmyr Gibbs. They had the Rodriguez kid at linebacker. I think they had another kid that played a lot, but they feel like they want like a more traditional stout guy in the middle of defense. I'm not gonna. Again, I felt like that team would have gotten in the playoffs last year. That was last year. They were going to be a problem. So I'll just I'll back off and let them do them and see what happens. I think they're the favorite in that division. There's no doubt about it. Detroit is definitely the favorite in the NFC North. And you can't convince. I think anybody would agree with that. I mean, who knows, man? Again, when teams do this. Oh, I didn't see that, Johnny. I didn't see that one. Yeah, teams, again, they do what they do. They have their own rationale. I mean, I guess they feel like that's the best way to develop Desmond Ridder. He has two backs he can just hand the ball off to. He's got two big targets and Drake London and Kyle Pitts he can throw to. And he doesn't have a lot of pressure on him that way. But, at the end of the day, when your asshole is tight late in games, we all seen how a lot of these games are won and lost. Like, the quarterback has to drop back and throw. That's the way it is. He's going to have to drop back and make a play. And he's usually going to have to make a clutch play. So yeah, I mean, they took a defensive player right after. Everybody thought it was Mayer that they were going to take, but the fact that they didn't take a tight end after Kincade obviously says it wasn't Mayer that they were interested in, because they could have just stayed and took a Mayer. So if it's kind of like the whole thing with the Jets, they telegraphed that they love Braxton Jones, but all of a sudden here comes the Steelers flying ahead because of the Patriots. Oh, you think you're going to get a tackle to protect Rodgers? Okay, fuck you. We're going to make sure that old man's going to be on his back. Thank you, Patriots. That actually, to me, and the Patriots win defense. Thank you. Oh, if you could throw that in the, did he tweet that or is that on video, Trevor? If you can, if it's video, throw it in the room. Those guys know better than me. I don't. There's not a lot of telephones, and I got one phone. I don't have sources. Maybe a tiny, but it's more just chit chat back and forth. It's no real info. It's more fun than anything. Oh, okay. I didn't see that. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to see those guys, get together and just run it out and see what they can develop. Because now it's like you have Deontay Hardy, you have Sherfield in certain situations. So I think if you put it together as a package, I think this pass catching group, and we're just midway through the offseason with 2 more days of the draft, undrafted free agency, um, third wave free agency after the draft, and then everything that goes on in July and August, with the roster cuts and all the stuff that happens then. I think we're they're in a good place right now. Oh, thanks, Trevor. I appreciate it, man. I gotta. Okay, he's right here. Appreciate that. I'll watch that after this is over. Okay, thanks for the time mark too, dude. I'll do that right now. But no, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy. I'm happy that the tight end thing came to fruition and it was validated. I know I had the player. I wasn't right on the player, but I was right on the theory and the idea and the concept of what they were thinking about doing with an extra tight end the whole time. I was steadfast on it. I was just like, this, they want to do this. They've tried to do it with lesser players, more established players, and even when Knox got established, they tried to do it. So it didn't matter. And now that they have this young guy paired with Knox, who's established now, they can really, really be a lot more what they want to be offensively. And how annoying was it? Let me just get this off my chest. I hated that shit. Like, I liked when the draft was just held in NYC. It was kind of like neutral territory, done at Radio City Music Hall. Even now, beautiful time of year in New York, North New Jersey. They could have done it in Central Park. Families, people save their whole lives to come here to see the city, to see, everything, all the sights and stuff. And then they had like the Chiefs players come out, the Mahomes has the damn trophy, and then you have Kelsey. I was like, oh fuck. I just wanted to throw up in my fucking mouth when that whole thing started. I was like, oh, of course. Read some of your comments, guys. Yeah, Duffel. I couldn't stand it. I was like, I just like, to me, the draft is supposed to be like a non-biased, like, sorry, my cat. He always has the hairball this time. You guys remember? I didn't know that, Steve. Maybe, maybe. I mean, teams are always trying to save money, and so that could be in their thinking too. Or they can end up just releasing him, and then he goes where he wants. Who knows? But I don't think that. I think it would behoove them to release them. Yeah, probably. But they had a lot of people there when they panned back. I'm not gonna lie, they had a lot of people there. But it's Kansas City. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know how much there is to do or not do. I know they've always had a big fan base. You know, they've always had a very, like, Arrowhead's always been full. It's always been full. I remember, I can go back to the Dave Craig days, for Christ's sake, with Christian Okoye and Derek Thomas and Neil Smith. Those places were full. With Steve Bono, it was full. So okay, so it'd be a post June 1st It would be called a post June 1st cut. Yeah, so they I mean if the booms caught a boo, I'm shocked it didn't catch more. But I was happy though to see that the other teams went defense. Like I said, our division rivals went defense. The two main teams in the conference went defense, and the Bills went offense. So a team that's already adept at scoring, is looking to score more, and that's ideally what you want to do instead of getting Spartan production from your third, fourth options. You could get demonstratively more, and Knox's production could get elevated because of this too, which I expect it to be. Yeah, Mayer is good. Mayer's a good, and he's a better blocker. I can't say that Mayer's a better blocker, but he's definitely good. He's definitely a fluid athlete with fluid hips. His run after the catch is good, which this team needs. They need a guy who could just catch a 5 and get a 25 or a 30, especially at that size. He broke, I think it was something like he made like 16 guys miss. He had the most missed tackles out of all the tight ends, which that's a lot if you think about it. Well, I remember Gronk had back problems too coming out. One pick. I don't know. Media says a lot of things, don't they? They say a lot of things. It doesn't always make them true. God, Carolina's got enough people in its draft room. Holy shit. Yep, here's Mahomes, got the trophy. He's got to come out there. Can't have the commissioner getting booed off the stage, so they had to bring out the hometown guys to soften the blow. I have no clue. Well, Indy's not going to take him. Indy's not going to take him. Pitt's not going to take him. Arizona's not going to take him. Detroit could take him. The Rams could take him. Seattle could take him. Any one of those teams could take him, but I don't think anybody who picked a young quarterback tonight's going to take him, which is 3 teams. And then you have Hendon Hooker. So I'm only trying to look at guys that are going to drive players down to the Bills. Like that's the only guys I'm looking at. I'm looking at like, okay, best available wide receiver. The quarterbacks, the Bills aren't taking any of the quarterbacks. Maybe Jay Kaner sneaks into tomorrow in the 3rd round. I don't think the Bills are taking a running back. So Charbonnet, who the Bills had in for a top 30 visit, he probably gets taken tomorrow. Devin Archie, Tajay Spears probably gets taken tomorrow. Brian Branch probably gets taken tomorrow. Jordan Battle. Let me see. The corners are probably going to get taken a lot tomorrow. I mean, yeah, Cam Smith, Porter Jr., Tyreek Stevenson, DJ Turner, Clark Phillips, Ringo, Brents. Yeah, the corners are really going to push a lot of people down tomorrow. Maybe they like one, but I don't think they're going to take a corner. I think they'll rely more on depth there. So I would look at offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver. That's where I would look at tomorrow. Those 4 positions. Well, neither have I, Johnny, considering the amount of resources they've burped into it. But I think tomorrow they're going to take one. I think they're going to take. If I was a betting man, I would say they take an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman tomorrow. An offensive lineman, defensive lineman. But I'll probably end up looking stupid and they'll take a linebacker and a wide receiver. It's possible. I mean, I think he's highly rated. I mocked him in the 1st round, but if he goes to the Bills tomorrow, you got to figure. I could see that, Steve. I could see defensive tackle, wide receiver. I could see the reverse, defensive tackle in round 2, wide receiver in round 3. I could see offensive line. I could see a lot of things, but I always end up looking stupid. I had him going in the first round, and he's still there. But if they take Tippmann per se, you're gonna start him. He's not gonna he's a second round player. He's starting. He's either gonna be your starting left guard or right guard and then you have to move an interior player. You just signed Connor McGovern. You're not moving him. Somebody's got to get moved because he's not a guy that's just you're not gonna redshirt him. You need guys that can play. So that's why I kind of veer more towards it's going to be a guy who can play tackle, even though center is very, very valuable, of course. So I think it's going to be probably a defensive tackle, a guy that can give them volume on the field. That's what I would say. But guys, you got Down. I forgot about Downs. Thanks for reminding me, Steve. You got Downs, you got Mingo, Rice, Hyatt, Mims. I like Wilson. Wilson's my guy. Wilson, because I think they can ease him on the field, figure out what his injury situations have been, and try to correct those so they don't reoccur. Because I think he's got the most upside of all of them. Like he can be a true X, and that's the hardest one. Watch his release, watch his get off, his go up and get it. Like he's so there's so much there. Like if he could just stay healthy, there is so much there. That's what I like about Wilson, and he can play special teams and a solid kid. Like you hear him talk, you hear he's a solid kid. But I'm gonna jump off here, guys. Thanks for jumping on with me. I know it was a late hour. I'm gonna be on tomorrow, much earlier, and get off there earlier because I know it's Friday still. A lot of you guys got to go to work and do your thing. I got to go to work. I only got something light to do tomorrow, but I want to get it done because it's going to be annoying. And appreciate you always. Thank you. Go Bills. Dalton Kincade, a Buffalo Bill, a guy a lot of people had rated. Some guys had rated in the top 10. Daniel Jeremiah. I have to go look at the individual rankings of Kuiper, McShay, but it looks like ESPN had him 14th. I'll go look at some of the others just to see. Brugler had him 20th overall. Bills get him at 20th overall. So you got to feel like maybe there could have been a first round grade there, or maybe there was a precipitous drop off after that. But until tomorrow, guys, take care. Go Bills, and we'll see what pops off in round 2, round 3 tomorrow. Love you all, guys. Peace, man. Thank you so much. Go Bills. Oh.